Massachusetts. Here's the thing. Texas has a bigger economy as a state than you do as a country.
Damn. Burn.
So, I would watch your tone, number one. Number two, Maine has better maple syrup. Number three, I'm pretty sure New York has the better hockey team. And number four, boycott one simple boycott from the United States citizenry, and your economy tanks hard. So when Donald Trump simply asked you very nicely to lock your borders down and keep your drugs and your organized crime to the north of the border, why did you not listen? So now you're confronted with two problems here. The American people telling you to shove your wares where the sun doesn't shine, and a tariff. An increasing tariff of American goods, which is basically your life support and the only thing keeping your country alive at this point. Um, so, yeah, submit or suffer, basically. That's kind of my point here. And, oh, by the way, just so you know, uh, this house that I'm in was not built from Canadian wood. It was actually built from Kentucky wood. Go figure. Constructed in a New York factory. And I know this because I looked it up. Imagine that! So, yeah, you can feel free to do all the little press briefings that you want. Keep it up, and you'll find out that we can enforce our northern border just as much as we can our southern border, and you can forget about coming to your vacation homes in Florida. You can freeze in that little popsicle stand you call Canada. Because that's basically what your economy is compared to the United States. A popsicle stand. In fact, I'm pretty sure a decently marketed popsicle stand could probably do better. Just saying. So, no, at the end of the day, you really, really, really don't matter to us at all. And I'm going to find it very humorous when you're basically eating worms out of the dirt because you've cut off all of your resources from us. And oh, don't worry about us on the energy and fuel thing. We've got Alaska, excuse me, Texas, and the Great Plains. We're good. We, as a country, the United States basically has been milking out the rest of the world for their resources for our own personal long term gain. We'll put it that way. Because then, when y'all have quote unquote run out of these resources, then we get to sit here and say, hey, we're the only ones with it, which means we get to set the price tag. If you think we're worried about tapping into that reserve for the, I'm guessing, about 2 weeks that you'll live under these conditions as an economy, boy, are you in for a shock. And before anyone decides to mouth off about auto parts and automotive anything in the United States, let me tell you a little secret about the United States. For the last 4 years, we've had difficulty selling cars because no one can fucking afford them. We actually have a backstock of vehicles here in the United States that were made, some of which were made here, others were made in other countries like Japan and other places. If you think that's a problem for us, no, we'll just get it from Japan or Korea. I mean, piss off. It doesn't matter. So, effectively, you're left pissing in the wind because really, the only other thing I can think of that we get from Canada that I haven't already pissed on and insulted is your cheap ass beer. Sorry to say it, but I've seen inmates make better alcohol out of a toilet. So, you know what? Without the United States, your country literally gets put on life support by another foreign nation. Which, speaking of which, I see a lot of losers on Twitter, or rather X, saying shit about Canadian sovereignty. You haven't been sovereign since the day you were established. You've been Britain's bitch for the last 300 plus years. So, sovereignty my ass. You've been literally licking the twat of the British government the whole time. They're the only reason your country exists. And by the way, the United States, that last part's true for the United States as well. If it wasn't for British tyranny and the uprising of George Washington and the founding fathers in America, the country of the United States wouldn't exist the way that it does either. I'm not discrediting you for that, but I am saying that you effectively kissing Britain's ass every step of the way and being effectively the World Economic Forum's, more recently, the World Economic Forum's little bitch boy, basically, trying to tout the liberal leftist lines that they keep telling you to do, which are causing these problems in your country and causing America as a whole to hate your fucking shit. And this is not directed at the Canadian citizenry, it's directed at your government. I wouldn't vacation in your country if Justin Trudeau came up to me with a handwritten 75-page apology letter and $3.5 billion. I'd still stay the fuck home. And you know what? That very individual, Justin Trudeau, and his party are exactly the people to blame for that. I've actually been to Canada before. I drove with my dad. Well, I didn't drive. I was way too young to drive. But I rode in the car with my dad when we made a 5-day journey from Maine all the way up to Alaska. And you know what? Canada used to be gorgeous. And I'm sure some parts of it still are. But Justin Trudeau has pissed away your legitimacy as a government. And you know what? I don't mind saying this because Canada's not my home country, and I'll say it all I fucking want. You idiots in Canada who keep voting to let these fucking people get in are not doing something else about it. I'm sorry, but at some point you got to do the right thing for yourself, and we Americans are going to do the right things for ourselves too. And if you can't get your organized crime and your drugs under control, then we'll do it for you. We can always just issue a travel ban from Canada, making it impossible for any Canadian leadership to get to their little countryside vacation villas. And then you know what? After about, what is it, a year where they can't do anything to their property, in most states it's about a year, well, the real estate companies, or rather the bank, can just recall or foreclose upon your homes, your little vacation homes, and sell them to American families who actually need a roof over their head. Imagine that. Gee, we just totally saved a homeless issue right there, didn't we? All those nice people who've been living on the streets now get to eat off of your shiny silverware. Which, in some of your cases, might actually be made out of real silver, given how much you've exploited your own people and taken all their money for your own personal benefit. Just saying. Just saying. I think you'll find that most Americans, about a good 51 to 52% at a minimum, would not have a problem with this. In fact, I would argue that over half of the people that voted don't know shit about Canada. And realistically speaking, if we were to just shut off the flow of goods from Canada and just make this shit ourselves at home, but which we could do, by the way. We absolutely could make our own oil filters, because realistically, that's about the only thing that we get from you guys is the Fram company that's really worth a shit. We could just make it right here. So, if we're not buying your stuff, that's like, You got Trump's tariffs down here. That's like way up here. So, as an American citizen, I am going to be promoting and pushing for a boycott of anything from Canada until you straighten the fuck up and secure your border. That's all we want. I mean, literally, that's it. It's really not that fucking complicated. You can either secure your border and keep your drugs and your organized crime to your fucking self, or we can just stop doing business with you and start manufacturing right here at home. Because 90% of the quote unquote environmental regulations that make things so expensive to operate here in the United States were done via executive order and could just as easily be overwritten by another executive order. The only reason that they haven't been is because we didn't see a need to. It's kind of like the bully in school, and effectively America is the bully in this particular equation. We've just been taking your money and taking your money and taking your money, but we've just been doing it to kind of be a pain in your ass. The reality is that we have plenty of money at home. We're sitting on $150, but snagging your $10 lunch ticket has just kind of been a hobby at this point. So, which, by the way, that was a direct comparison to your economy. You are a microcosm of a country. The United States is one of the world's biggest economies and military superpowers. So, I think we'll be fine without you. And you know what? When we're done dealing with you, we'll deal with. We're actively dealing with the neighbor to the south already. You are a foregone conclusion. You can either submit, secure your borders, and keep your drugs and your organized crime to the north, and deal with it in house, and keep your BS to yourself, or we'll just secure the border for you, and no Canadians will be able to pass on to U.S. soil. Because at the end of the day, once the tariff BS blows away, and it's not, and everyone figures out that that doesn't work, travel bans are the next step. So, just throwing that out there. So, if you have a vacation home in the U.S., you might want to think really long and hard. If you're in Canada's parliamentary system, you might want to really think long and fucking hard about how you vote. Anyway, I'm not going to do one on Mexico because Mexico's kind of got their own problems, and their current, let's just call her mayor because Mexico's economy is even smaller than fucking Canada's. And their population size, once you remove the cartels, is even smaller. You know, they're their own problem. We'll deal with them on our own. And China, we've had a beef with China for fucking years. Kind of getting tired of it, actually. Believe it or not, I actually know quite a few Chinese people that I actually enjoy the company of, both online and in real life. And I think it sucks that their country of origin decided to be a bunch of peckerheads and decide that killing Americans by sending fentanyl through Mexico and Canada was such a good idea. And I do agree with Trump. He is absolutely well within his right to tariff any nation he sees fit for whatever reason he sees fit, because tariffs fall exactly and dead center within the control of the President of the United States. And see, one of the benefits of being one of the world's biggest superpowers, or rather, the thing that made us a superpower to begin with, aside from effectively, cock slapping all the bad guys in massive and significant ways in World War II, including nuking the hell out of Imperial Japan. Well, on top of that, we were made the world-based currency effectively. So, when we say step in line or step aside, those are really your only two options. I recommend stepping in line, though, because actually, when you think about it, if you enforce your own border, that means that you get to protect your own country from things coming up from Mexico through the United States. Or better yet, You seem to be all anti-gun. It's a good way to control the flow of drugs and guns from the United States into Canada. I really don't understand the opposition to something that's just that elementary. Control your borders. Duh. I'll put it to you another way. There used to be a disease that was significantly prevalent back in ancient times. It's a lot less prevalent now. It was called leprosy. And I know a lot of people who watch this know what leprosy is. Well, certain cities and nations way back in the day, we're talking like what Christians would call biblical times, right? Like ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, ancient Israel, ancient, Samaria, all that area, right? Well, when someone or a group of people with leprosy would show up, they would enforce their borders by telling them, no, you can't come here. We have a special colony over there. I mean, it worked. Say what you will, but it worked. And I know there's going to be someone to chime off and say, but that was a medical thing. That had to be done, blah, blah, blah. Well, they didn't, number one, they didn't know it was a medical thing back then. They were too primitive to understand what medical even meant. Number two, leprosy was a very virulent problem back then. Anyway, um, anyway, I do get. We will kind of browse through some of these posts about the tariffs between Canada and the U.S. Um, very very briefly. Um, yeah. So basically, they're shutting down liquor purchases in Republican red states, whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean these days. Only. I agree with this guy. What the fuck is wrong with these idiots? Yeah, I agree. Tit for tat is a losing strategy. Um, that won't end well for Mexico, considering we're about to wipe out their cartels in general. Um, well, by the way, that particular, we'll say, military action is probably going to pop off whether they fucking like it or not. Especially if the cartels keep shooting across the borders. Like, we're not going to give Mexico the option. It's just going to be done, and they're just going to have to fucking cope. Um, Mexico's president, yeah, I don't care about that. Well, Bernie Sanders needs to be investigated for his involvement with certain pharmaceutical companies and the amount of money that has been donated to his various campaigns, as well as his opposition to RFK Jr., which I think is directly fucking linked. But that's just my personal opinion. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tells Canadians not to vacation in the United States. Okay. And vacation in Canada instead. um, well, you might want to consider selling off all of your property that you may or may not own in America there, Justin, my boy, because you're about to lose your butthole. 106 billion in U.S. goods. Oh, please. If we do the same in reverse, that number gets doubled, by the way. So, and yes, that's another thing, too. This is coming right from a Canadian. Us tariffing Canada is literally going to turn them into a third world country. And we Americans will be just fine. Which is kind of funny that he's posting this video from CPAC, which is not to be confused with Conservative PAC. This is Canada PAC. Kind of funny that they're posting this on the internet, which was initially an American invention. Hmm. I wonder, should it be worth it if we consider starting to shut down certain sectors of the internet from places like, say, Canada? Just like we do other third world countries. There are so many ways that we could hurt them. And there is only like one way that they can do it to us, and it's not very impactful. Um, so yeah. Oh yeah, that's another good point. Thank you, Rep Brandy. Um, Good luck getting medical care up in Canada, because you won't be able to get it here in the States if we issue a travel ban. You'll be stuck waiting for a year or two before you can see your doctor for something as simple as a physical, and forget about that colonoscopy. I guess your asshole just have to fucking rot out, won't it? For a year just so you can have one done. No, it's a joke. It's a joke. Oh, don't vacate. Please come vacation in Canada. To see what? Glaciers? Tread not. Thank you. That's smart. That is a good one. And think about that. um, I literally, there was, you know, yeah. So, yeah, this is another good point. Canada already tariffs the shit out of the U.S. Us tariffing them and getting into a tariff bitch fight, this is nothing new. And that's another thing, too. Like, Justin Trudeau and the left and the media, they're going to sit there and use this to try to virtue signal about how Donald Trump's a bad person. Bitch, please. Oh, boy. Yeah. Canada and the U.S. have been throwing tariffs in each other's face left and right for the last, what, 60 years, basically? This is nothing new. This is nothing new. The only new thing that would be thrown in there is if the United States civilian populace were to reduce the purchase of Canadian products by about 25 to 50% in general. What would happen then is the entirety of the Canadian economy would just fold, like the house of cards that it is. Literally, Texas has a bigger economy than fucking Canada does. What would happen, and I'm throwing this out here, but what would happen to Texas if the rest of the country decided to say, no, we're boycotting everything from Texas? And we'll start processing oil and shit in, like, Arizona or some shit. Or, Louisiana, Mississippi, or any other of the Gulf states. Um, it's the same idea. It is literally the same idea. If we as the American people decided to boycott a country that is not the United States or Russia or China, and actually China would be probably the hardest one to do this with. Mexico and Canada are probably the easiest ones. Um, Really, if we did this to the Middle East, they would go back to literally clubbing each other with sticks, because they would have nothing from us anyway. And if you think China loves them, if China loved Middle Eastern folks so much, how come there are Uyghur is what? Sorry, let me pronounce this correctly. Why did they march a bunch of Uyghur Muslims into death camps? Just throwing that out there. If they love their Middle Eastern cousins so much, why are they so willing to put them in death camps? Answer me that one. Um, but all this stuff here that you see here is all shit that we should be doing at home. Every last fucking bit of it we should be doing right here at home on our own terms. And you know what's going to happen? Next week, Donald Trump's going to bump that 25% tariff up to 50%, further hastening the fuck you to Justin Trudeau and the Canadian government. It's going to get so bad that here's another fun little prediction. Are you ready for this one? Even if we did get into a soft war of attrition courtesy of tariffs and denial of services and goods, the United States is going to long outlive Canada. And I don't mean the Canadian people, meaning the, like, what, couple thousand people that live in the northern sticks and hunt and subsist off the land. I'm not talking about those people. Actually, most of those people can't stand the fucking cities and can't stand Justin Trudeau to begin with. In fact, the ratio is not even close. It's like 98% of them detest their own country's government. Because they try to tell them what they can and can't do every time they wipe their ass. What's that? You want to put a new outhouse on your property? Oh, there's a tax on that. We just put it up here. It increases the previous tax by another 125%. So, well, thank you. I don't know who Man on the Moon is, but no, I would very much like to see this whole thing play out. I think it'll be very funny to watch. And yeah, to be blunt, we need to start making all this stuff at home. We do, like, 100%. COVID was like the big eye-opening thing for the United States. We rely on way too many outside resources for stuff that, by the way, are basically, like, essential. Um, just like outright not pharmaceuticals. Well, I mean, yeah, to a degree, pharmaceuticals as well. But pop the hood on a defibrillator sometime and see where it's made. Most of them aren't made in the U.S. That's advanced medical equipment that we need to be making here, with service centers here. Like, what happens if you're a major metro hospital and half of your defibrillators are down due to a defective part? Oh, gee, we gotta wait for like 6 months to go through all the red tape to send it back to China, get the repairs done, and have it sent back. How many people have died because those things are disabled because of that? It's so brain dead. So brain dead. I hate what this country did back in the 80s and 90s. Shipping stuff to be done overseas and slapping all these regulations to make it more expensive to do at home was the dumbest thing we've ever done. And quite literally, you could have an executive order to entirely demolish like half of these regulations. Oh, that's another fun story for another time, I guess. David Hogg elected as the DNC vice chair. Oh, that's too funny. Too funny. Um, no, it has nothing to do with them becoming the 51st state. That was, to be fair, that was Donald Trump poking them in the butt, trying them to do something. He does that all the time, and the fact that they're taking this as some sort of theory thing, yeah, okay, dude, whatever. Yeah, Bernie Sanders. Ooh, yeah, that was fun to see. um, I've seen more posts along this line right here about hating Canadian politicians than I have anything else. Like, and this is going to sound terrible to say this out loud, but I've seen more of them than I've seen adult content bots on here for, advertising for OnlyFans. That's how bad Canadian people think of their own country. That's terrible. I haven't watched wrestling in like 4 years though, so seeing that is kind of a fun thing to see. I will definitely probably be pulling that one up at some point. Yeah, the FBI. I have had zero faith in the FBI pretty much since the day I was born. That's not going to change. And really, it's not so much a I hate them and want to see them disappear, although there's probably a certain part of me that wouldn't mind that so much. It's more based out of a general just dislike for government in general. I don't think anyone should be trusting their government no matter where they are, and that is my basically permanent default. You can't trust them to act in your personal best interest because most governments are not focused on your individual rights and resources. They are focused on the rights resources of the collective, of a collective somewhere. And oftentimes you're not a part of that collective, so you know I've seen a lot of these. The problem people don't realize is we will have short-term pain, right? 100% you'll have short-term pain. Um, but the long-term gains are worth it. And here's what I mean by that. If you bring gas manufacturing and eggs, as what this post here says, from Canada, I'm gonna read that comment before I say anything. Oh no, hey, I get it. You live in a dude. I lived under Joe Biden for 4 years. I lived under Obama for 8. I lived under Bush for I don't even remember. I was in school at that point in time. Governments suck like 100%, and it might not be fair. Um, but you do have to admit that simply asking someone to secure their border is not really that big of an ask. I'm sure if Trudeau did, probably wouldn't be having this problem. Just saying. I mean, yeah. Say what you will about Donald Trump joking about making Canada or part of Canada into the 51st state. Realistically speaking, I don't think a lot of people realize how hard it is to make a new state. There is, like, it's a process. And most presidents only get 4 to 8 years. Actually, that's all that they get is a maximum of 8. The reason we haven't seen a new state in the United States for so long, number one, no one really has a legitimate interest in it. Not even Trump. He says stuff like that to light a fire under people's butts to get them to do something. Number two, it's just we never have someone in office long enough to actually do it, right? So like you could get Bush in for 8 years, and Bush sits there and says, "I want to turn Afghanistan into the next state of the United States." Well, guess what? After his 8 years, Obama comes in and says, "No, screw that noise." It just never happens. The only reason Trump did it is to accelerate and cause problems because it's what he does. He is the hand grenade in the world government system that we wanted to throw. Actually, not the one that we wanted to throw, just the only one that we really had that we could throw. There were a lot of other ones that we wanted to throw out there that were more severe, but they never could have made it to any sort of political office ever. Anyway, yeah, no. The problem is that the two borders between the three countries are actually cartel carte blanche zones, basically. And it is more so true in the southern border of the United States than it is between Canada and the United States. The problem is that by not securing your guys' part of the border, you're getting backblast from us dealing with Mexico. And the only way to really effectively deal with Mexico is to have both borders secure. And the only way to secure both borders is to literally have Canada to secure theirs. So that's kind of where we're at. It is a tactical decision that is all based on hurting the cartels as much as humanly fucking possible at just about any cost. It probably has less to do with fentanyl coming from Canada. I'm not going to lie. It probably has more to do with trying to shut off all trade routes between Canada and Mexico, not for the governments or the people of the two places, but specifically for the cartels and the organized crime members. Shutting down borders at that point makes sense. And that's really what it boils down to. I mean, you could say what you will about 25%, 50%. You got to realize that I kind of went a little bit hard at the beginning of this video, but the reality is that the Canadian economy is not as big as people make it out to be. Not compared to the other, like, five that are ahead of it. Which is fine. Most nations, I'm not going to lie to you, most countries and nations on this planet don't even scratch the surface even compared to China and Russia. And that is the truth. It's a hard fact, but it is there. Um, and I hate to be the one to stomp all over anyone's patriotism because believe it or not, I actually used to really like Canada. I still kind of do, and I'd like to see y'all get your stuff back. Get your balls back, so to speak. But the problem is that you've been subverted by, and it's not just Justin Trudeau or the Liberal Party. And I'm not going to go down some conspiracy rabbit hole here, but I'm going to tell you who it is. It's the European parliaments that sit there and want to sit there and play puppet master with your parliament. It's literally because you are a vassal state to the United States, but you've also effectively been, and this is going to sound harsh, but you've been the bitch of the British Royal Crown since your founding. And it's just the way that it is. And look at what's happening in Britain right now. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Your government has failed you. And, for the first time in like 4 years, I'm in a position in the United States where I feel like someone in my government is doing something. And I'll take it because, after having a doddering old corpse in a friggin' wheelchair who loves his ice cream too much for 4 years, and I legitimately get called a whack job for this one, but I don't think he made any policies or signed anything himself. I swear it was his little advisors doing all of his work for him. I don't think he was even capable of it. But like after 4 years of dealing with that, yeah. Well, that's just it. I don't know how your guys' vote system works up there. I live in the States. Um, and until Trudeau gets out, I'm still gonna sit here and rag on you guys and say Maine maple syrup is better. But I mean, do you guys get to vote for your representatives, or do you guys have senators that go in and represent your districts, or what? I mean, I don't know this stuff. I should probably look it up before I get too far into the weeds on that, really. But like, you gotta do something. I mean, Germany did, tried to, and I know you guys want that feeling. And there's only one way you're gonna get that feeling, and that is to go vote or whatever it is you got to do to take back your country. I mean, how many years have you guys been suffering under this bonehead? You know what? Why don't we just look up the facts ourselves? I won't trouble you to have you type it all up. Let's do it. I got you right here. We'll start with the Canadian voting process. I mean, you'll have to see the side of my head because my setup's kind of wonky, but I can't spell worth of crap because of what time it is. Let's see. Election step by step. All right. So yeah, you do have a voting system similar to what we have here in the States. I'm not going to say it's exactly the same, but it would appear at face level that you have a way to vote. If I'm not mistaken. So what needs to happen is you, your friends, your family, and your neighbors, you all need to caucus together and start voting for people that actually have your country's interest at heart and not some global government somewhere. And I know that makes me sound like a conspiracist whack job, but, I'd rather sound like a whack job and actually be telling the truth than tell a lie and sound perfectly sane. Let's see. How do I want to put this? Justin Trudeau tenure. Oh, God, I'm going to butcher the spelling on his name. I know it. Oh, let's see. Since 2015? That's 10 years. Ugh. You've had to live under that fuckwit for 10 years? Yikes.
No, we don't live in for 4.
Right? Oh man, I'm glad we have presidential term limits in the U.S.
I don't think we could handle living under someone for 10 years.
Dude, if I had, okay, I voted for Trump. Not afraid to admit it. I'll say what I said. What I said, right? But if I had to put up with him for 10 years straight, I'd probably go cross-eyed and crazy. Than I already am anyway. The new PM with no election. Wow. That that sucks. I mean, that sucks. So I guess my question is really? What happened to Polivier or whatever his name is? The one that was batting around news reporters like they were flies. Whatever happened to him? I mean, he probably didn't get the votes, but that is terrible. It's, oh God, it's that carny. Uh huh. See, I don't really follow Canadian politics too much. Yeah, well, why can't the opposition be the prime minister for a change? You know? I mean, what's stopping the votes from happening to replace these pseudo representatives to get your, to get the right guy in the right place? I think those should be the real questions that if you live in Canada. Yeah, Pierre, thank you. Uh, you can call me what you want, just don't call me late for dinner, but I will call myself terrible at names. So, I will butcher it every time. And the only reason I can do American politicians so well is because it's literally in my face every day. I mean, you guys gotta get together and figure something out, because, man. And actually, what turned me on to, and that sounds terrible phrasing, to Canadian politics was actually the thing where they made it so you guys couldn't carry handguns around. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, dude, I lived in Alaska for like 8 years. I know what animals roam those territories. Um, you better be packing a 357 on a daily basis, because there's a very strong chance that there's going to be a very pissed off mama brown bear or black bear, depending on which part you're in, or maybe something white, bigger, and more angry, coming for your head. And if you can't defend yourself, you're screwed. I know this. Our biggest threat in Alaska wasn't so much the bear population, though. It was the wolf population. Small children, baby moose, caribou, elk. It was nuts. We actually had to start issuing out like massive scale hunts to control the population. It didn't work.
No?
Oh God, no, it didn't work. They bred faster than we could kill them.
Oh my.
We could never carry handguns. I wish they made it so you can't even open a handgun, own a handgun at all. Even what? Okay.
Oh my. I'm concerned now.
Oh, I'm just trying to play nice, because there's a certain mentality that happens here in the States when it comes to guns. And, well, I call it the Frank Castle attitude, and I try not to, when it comes to engaging with someone from a different country on, on stream, I try not to go there too much, but you guys really gotta do something. That's not good. I mean, shit. I mean, I know Canadians personally. And I also know that given the opportunity, the Canadians that I do know would have an armory the size of the state of Texas if they had the opportunity. And I jokingly made a post earlier, I could try to hunt it down, but yeah, stinking Canucks, I'm not gonna get one up. Where's my ability to purchase an Abrams tank? I will not be one upped. But in order to be one up, you guys have to have something like a Second Amendment. And you don't, from what I'm understanding here. I just, ugh. Remember what they say, an armed society is a polite society. But no, seriously, if you want to, I really wish I knew enough about Canadian politics and or had the ability to convince enough of you lovely further northerners than me right now. A way to convince enough of you guys to kind of start pooling together and start talking about this stuff, like town council meetings or something. So, yeah, I really wish you guys weren't that way. We're not stuck that bad. It's remnants of a cult. Um, it really does suck, like, watching it happen, because I actually do have friends up there, and, like, it shouldn't be happening. It really shouldn't. We're the Western Hemisphere. I mean, crap. The United States has more guns than most countries across the planet in the civilian populace. Mexico has uncharted amounts of guns because of the cartels, and you can't really monitor that. And South America is the same way with the guerrilla factions. So, like, Canada's what, the one odd duck out that doesn't get to have, its own sort of arms race with the rest of us? That's not fair. Come on. Come on, man. To quote the doddering old geriatric who was my president, unfortunately. But no, I would very, very much like to see you guys. I would love to see an MACA movement in Canada. Make Canada great again. Or however you'd put that. Or better yet, just make Canada Canada again. Wow. A lot of twisted other stuff. Yeah, that's another story I was covering. Look, there's been some weird, and I am going to kind of move on from the Canada thing a little bit, but there's been kind of this weird development on Twitter in regards to the, yeah, exactly. That's actually a really good way to put it. Like, Donald Trump is America first. Your guys' PM needs to be Canada first, and the person in Mexico needs to be Mexico first. And in order to do that, the borders have to be there. We are separate countries, and we need to identify that instead of trying to think that we're all one giant unit. It's not how it works. But anyway, yeah, there was some developments on this the DC crash that happened on Twitter, and I'm not really a big fan of it. And I'm going to briefly talk about it for the sake of the stream, anyway. So, in the United States, we have what are known as continuity of government operations, where effectively you have drills and practices to, like, for an example, transport, in the case of an emergency, the vice president out of harm's way, right? So, the mission that happened what happened was the helicopter crashed into a jet, or vice versa. So it comes out that Captain Rebecca Labosh, God, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Loback, I could be butchering this, worked under Biden, like, pretty closely. So I've seen a lot of shade being thrown for that, and I gotta call it out, even though I know that this isn't really the topic of the video, but I kind of wanted to address it. These are soldiers that work at our military's behest. I don't care if she's a woman. I don't care if she served under Biden. I don't care if she drank tea with Kamala Harris. The fact is that she was a soldier first. And it is really sad that she died. And I'm going to throw some shade on some very prominent conservatives, not by name, but in principle, by saying, screw all of you. She's a soldier first, and if you can't respect that, stay the fuck off my feed. I said it. And I know that's not how X works, Twitter works, whatever you want to call it. I get that, but, like, stop. There is no partisanship when a soldier dies. It's tragic, it sucks, it's frustrating. Okay, especially for her family, and it's just really, really not fair for that to happen. And yes, this is... we kind of lied to some of our fellow voters a little bit down here. People whining about voting for cheaper eggs and gas. I didn't vote for that. I voted to see a corrupt system tore down. That sums it up here in the States. Like, there comes a certain point when a political system in a country goes so bad that you just kind of have to take the short-term pain for the long-term gain. And you gotta get your people together and vote. And vote accordingly. it's the only thing you can do. I don't know if your political system allows for that kind of input, but from what I understand of it, there's like two regions in Canada that are really problematic because they have all the seats and all the population effectively. And you guys out in the boondoggles, I'm assuming you, well, I don't know, don't say where you live, that's totally inappropriate, but I'm going to assume that you're not in one of those higher population areas, but they totally have you cucked, 100%. Um, so, you know, yeah, there's a lot of people saying a lot about this Canada stuff too. A lot. But no, it is unfortunate, but look, there's only one way to rein in the cartels, and that's to cut off 100% of their business. And that includes Canada. And the only way to do that is to get the Canadian government to cooperate. And if they refuse to cooperate, there has to be consequences. I'm sorry, but kind of the way the world is at this point, it really fucking sucks. I miss being able to ski and snowboard and not have to worry about this BS. I haven't snowboarded since I was like 15, but I used to really enjoy it. Um, you know, man, you guys really hate your own government. Yeah, we have a similar problem here in Maine, actually. We've got Portland, Augusta, and a handful of like coastal Democrat controlled areas that are absolutely trying to sell their state up the river. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. That is dumb. That is why pure democracy like fails so hard. Is no one gets like sure the majority gets to say what happens, but there's no representation for anybody else. It's dumb. It is so dumb. I am gonna play this because I
Will you
haven't heard
recall
this clip
Parliament to
yet.
pass a bill to help Canadian workers and end prorogation?
As
That does
you
not.
can see from our strong response package, as we spoke about with premiers this afternoon and have for many weeks, we have the tools to be able to support Canadians through this challenging time as it stands.
Which is gonna evolve into taxing the crap out of Canadians. Oh my god, this guy is a communist through and through. Yeah, having six political parties or anything. All right, I would say if you have about three or four, depending on your, yeah, depending on how your like demographic works, three or four can be manageable, but six or more, that can be a bit much. um. Oh, I fucking love Chuck Schumer's bullshit. He's so dumb. um, you know, but this whole thing does kind of go back to what I was saying is that there's nothing wrong with trade between nations and friendly spirited stuff between nations. The problem is that we've gotten to the point where nations are actively relying on other nations, and realistically, that's not really good. It doesn't. It just doesn't work as well as people think it does. Um. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. You know what? I look at him and I look at Gavin Newsom from California, and I'm sitting there thinking, gee, I wonder who his daddy was.
This is a moment for Canadians to pull together, including Canadians of all different political parties. This is a moment where we need to set aside our differences and focus on delivering for Canadians.
This guy has never set aside a single difference with anybody else on any other situation. He has been the biggest thorn. I know this because I've watched it happen almost every week. He has been the biggest detriment to your country pretty much from his first day in office.
Canadians, standing up for Canadians and protecting the most successful political, military, economic, and security partnership the world has ever seen. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We have the tools to do it as a government right now, and we will keep doing it alongside our premiers and our partners.
In other words, he has no idea what he's doing. You're going to get screwed over in taxes. And, well, I'm sure you love living in Canada. If we had something similar to that happening in the States, I'd be looking at, like, Dubai or something, man. Maybe not Dubai, but something. I don't know, maybe a nice little tropical island somewhere where I can set up my own government, right?
Probably be good at it too.
Second Amendment for everyone, no limits. You want a tank? You can have a tank. That's all Fantasyland garbage, though. It's funny to think about, but it is garbage. He got in by legalizing pot. Oh my God. Why?
Did I just hear you right?
Why is it that I don't have a word for that. Like, how is it that it's always the twisted, corrupt guys that want to legalize pot in the system? It's like they do it just to get the votes so they can put the screws to everyone. Like you said, Trojan horse. It's pretty freaking ridiculous. Heck, Maine, we had something similar. Governor Mills, she said outright that one of the first things she wanted to do was expand our 5G and broadband internet access here in the state of Maine. And everyone voted for her. And now we can't get rid of the bitch.
Bait and switch.
Yeah, that does suck. That sucks. Our immigration I'm going to be honest with you. I agree with Trump deporting illegal immigrants 100%. It needs to happen. But I also agree when the Democrats sit there and say we need to fix the immigration system that we have too to allow good qualified people to come in. I don't know what disqualified you. That's a personal matter between you and the American government, but I would probably try to meet out to see what it is personally. But definitely, at this point in time, America's kind of going through I'm not going to say that it's the end of the metamorphosis. It's just getting started. To be honest, even with all the bad stuff that you have to live through under Trudeau, you're probably better off waiting until after about 2 years of Trump, maybe 4, just so that way you can see what it turns into. That's something that I always tell people who want to move to Maine because they're from California or Massachusetts or New York, right? Always wait until the end of a current political cycle. Like 2 years is usually the recommendation I give people here in the States anyway, 2 years, to see what the state does. In your case, what the country does. Just because you don't qualify right now doesn't mean that you might not qualify in the future, depending on why you don't qualify. Which is again an issue between you and the U.S. There might be a change in policy. You never know. Just keep your ear to the ground. If you're genuinely interested in coming down here the legal way, just give it some time and see what happens. All right, I'm not gonna sit here and blackball you into saying you can't come to America because it's Americans only. Arr, arr, arr. No, I might joke about the liberals turning the frogs gay, but I'm not gonna sit here and tell you you can't come to the U.S.
Like that one guy.
Yeah. Oh man, how does he? How does Alex Jones live with himself? and being right so much. As it turns out, there is a chemical that they put in the water that can turn frogs gay. How? Just, ay, ay, ay.
I don't think it's on purpose.
H1Bs are. Give me a second. They're they're not on the chopping block, but they're not really the main issue right now. And even Donald Trump said that they're not really like the biggest issue right now. Yeah, exactly. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. Atrazine. Yeah. The sad part about it is that we also have stuff that's killing us in our foods over here that we're trying to deal with too. But I don't know. I don't think H1Bs are really the big issue right now. I'm pretty sure it's mostly just like the violence from the Southerners and the Terrys that keep sliding across both borders. Because, hey, look, Canada's great and all, but the reason that we want you to secure your end of the border is because not so much because of the drugs, as it is the Middle Eastern folks that haven't been properly vetted keep slipping across. And that might sound racist, but it just kind of goes with where they come from, you know, where they were born and raised. It follows them. It does. When you come from the Middle East, people have to look at you twice to make sure that, you know, you're not wearing the wrong type of vest. It sucks. Being from Maine, living in Alaska, I lived in like 3 Native American villages where I was seen as the devil and incarnate. So, like, it's just the way that it is when you are of a different culture and you go somewhere, like, and you don't conform to that culturative norm, you're looked upon as a potential threat. It's just humanity. It's how we defend ourselves. People can call it prejudice all they want, but it's that same kind of prejudice that's kept our species alive from day one. You know? Otherwise, things would look a lot different. A lot different. But, like, just saying it like it is, you know, I don't have a problem with Canada. I actually have a lot of people from Canada, or that go to Canada anyway, that are on YouTube that do like camping and survival stuff. There's a guy that I watch that does kayaking stuff all throughout Canada that I like to watch on YouTube. I have zero problems with anyone from Canada except for your government. They don't do a good job at being a government, and it's screwing you guys over. Just like our immigration system is totally screwing everyone else that wants to come have an opportunity in the United States. Like, alright, so filtering out some people is fine. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, it's a good thing. But we have a system that the filter is clogged. Yeah. Yeah. Well, to be fair to the melting pot point, that is the failing of corrupt government officials in the United States. That is not so much our fault. The immigration problems that we have are simply because people don't want to do things legally, yes, but it's also because our government doesn't want to do its job. The melting pot situation is only a problem because of our government. Back in the 80s and early 90s, we actually hadn't had a problem with our, and I'm not trying to get on a whole race thing here because it's not even like a racial thing, but I'm using them as an example because they were the predominantly targeted group, was our black suburbs in the United States were targeted by a crack epidemic that was triggered by the CIA, which also seeded the divisions and gang wars that happened in that time. It was our own government that caused those issues, and here's why. I will explain why. It's actually pretty simple when you think about it. And it's one of those things that you don't really need proof, because, like, when you see how blatantly obvious and easy this is as like a chess tactic. Our government wanted to subvert our ability to defend and take care of ourselves by creating an issue in our own civilian populace, the black population and the colored minority populations in the United States, so that way the rest of the people that were living normal lives would turn to Big Daddy government and say, "Please, please, won't you save us?" And that's effectively what they did. So that way they could have more issues and create more problems that people would sit there and repeat the process and make them dependent on the US government. You'll see this happen in Canada, you'll see it happen in Europe, you'll see it happen in the Middle East, Asia, Russia. It happens all over the place. Russia is a very, very well known place for this to happen, where people like Putin will create an issue that they can solve and get a pat on the head by the people, and then proceed to rule over them with basically pure dominance. And that's not really how America's supposed to be, and that's what we're kind of waking up from. That's why you had, that's a large reason why you had a lot of colored folks this time voting for Trump that didn't before. Donald Trump's approval rating in the United States is still skyrocketing. It's because people are waking up to the pardon the term, but the shit that's been shoveled on their plates every day. And, I'm just kind of sitting here letting history take place, hoping that your neighbors and friends and loved ones in Canada will wake up to the same thing. That your government is the problem and you need to correct it or find a way to correct it. I don't know how. I don't know what. I'm always an advocate for nonviolent reformation. I will never be an advocate for violent reformation. It would take a lot for me to go there. Even though, yes, I know I wear the shirt on a lot of my streams. But there's a time and a place, right? And I really don't think that in the West we've hit the time or place of conflict. We just have to figure it out. And I'm going to be honest, given about, 2-3 weeks, maybe a couple of months, Justin Trudeau is going to cave because he doesn't have a spine. And even if he did have a spine, you really kind of can't just, do that. Oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. I'm not going to sit here and encourage that kind of thing, but, you got to do what you got to do,
Responding to comments?
Yes, actually, I have a chatter in my thing.
Oh, cool.
Who appears to actually be from Canada, 100%. He actually knows a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about and understands more, actually, about Canadian topics than I do.
Well, that's cool.
So that tells me that he's probably from there or is very close to it. That first Freedom Convoy should never have been treated the way that it was. And I don't think if there's a second one, I really don't think Justin Trudeau is going to have a whole lot of choice in how he deals with it. Exactly. Yeah, I saw the whole thing, dude. We had PayPal freezing our accounts on PayPal here in the States just to send them food money. We weren't paying for them to do anything bad. We were just buying them a burger once in a while. And PayPal has the balls to freeze our account just because we support and agree with what they're protesting. What their cause is. And it's like, I hated that. I so hated that. I'm still on a PayPal boycott because of that. I will not use PayPal ever. If I use anything, it'll be Give, Send, Go, and even that I question a little bit, but I haven't done enough research on that. To be honest, if things keep going that way, I don't know what your laws are in Canada, but I do know that you had a couple of judges come down pretty hard on Trudeau over some of the treatment of the people that protested during some of those convoys. I remember hearing something about it. I don't know the particulars, but Yeah, no, like, it wasn't only PayPal either. There were a couple credit card companies that tried to do it too. They got hammered pretty hard for it, but I just there are some things that push me to do a permanent boycott, and people can say, "Oh, that's cancel culture," and it's like, no, it's because they're violating someone's right to express a grievance against their government, and because I want to buy someone a sandwich, you're gonna freeze my account with $150 on it just for buying someone a fucking sandwich? Come on. But yeah, see, that's another thing too. Like, I feel like your judiciary has like no teeth at this point because of stuff like that. There needs to be repercussions. 100% sanctions against the Liberal Party or something. I don't know what, but like a pay cut, something. I must be thinking along the lines of like a CEO of a company or something, but it's just it's bonkers. It's bonkers. You know, and kind of a wolf howling at the wind here when I say this, but Chuck Schumer can pound sand. I make my own pizzas, so I literally nothing. I unfortunately living in Maine for the past like 10 years. The only thing in Maine, two things that we get in Maine from Canada, is maple syrup and Fram oil filters. We don't even get our oil from you guys. We get it from Saudi Arabia, of all places. I'm not kidding. It's just the way the oil distribution works. We're literally neighbors to Canada, but we don't do any sort of real, like, legitimate trade with Canada. And, I mean, I think it's kind of strange, but at the same token, I'm watching how your government behaves, and I'm like, thank God. But, you know, that's I can't say that. I can't say that. I want to say it. I can't say it. YouTube standards won't let me say it. They won't let me say it. I'll get banned for saying it, but I want to say it so bad. Oh man. Mm. That is simply put the hardest thing for me. That's upside down. As the type of person that I tend to be, it's very hard for me to bite my tongue on that one for the YouTube censorship. I should have started this on Rumble. Actually, no. On second thought, I couldn't have even said that on Rumble. Actually, holy crap, that would have actually crossed both lines. Um, oh, that is insane. That is insane. Um, as an American, I think that's nuts. Absolutely nuts. Um, so effectively, YouTube censors, if you're listening to this is a hypothetical. Actually, it is a hypothetical, but I'm going to turn it into an insult. So effectively, your government's so piss poor at their job, they have to disarm you to govern you. Is what you're saying. That is a better way to put it than the other way that I was going to put it. Trust me. The other way I was going to put it technically would classify me for a ban under YouTube. We're talking like permaban. But they are so bad at governing, they have to disarm their population. Wow. That is, huh. don't know what to say to that. Beyond that, what I can say is there comes a certain point where if you're that bad at your job, you probably shouldn't have it. Oh man. Like, I backed a car into another customer's car at an automotive shop and I got fired. But yet your government can sit there and decimate any sort of human dignity or anything just on principle and totally get away with it. Like, your ability to defend yourself just doesn't matter to them. That's dumb. That is like one of the most fundamental human rights is your ability to defend yourself. Holy crap. I just, you know what? No. Instead of sitting here whining and complaining about it, I'm conjuring up some names. If you have a pen and a piece of paper, write these names down. Colion Noir, and watch one of his videos. I forgot the lady's name, but she's a firearms advocate for Canada. Get as many people as you can together. Get as much money behind you as you can get, right? Like, and I know it's probably going to be damn near impossible. But just get as many people convinced to your cause that you can, even if it requires your friends and family to go into these liberal areas and start telling people, hey, they're taking away your ability to defend yourself. Get petitions started and start doing whatever you can. Because that is a step too far. That is a step too far. It is. Okay, so I'm the guy who just joked about wanting to have an Abrams tank, but no, you need to do something about your ability to defend yourselves. Okay, well the Ninja Stars thing they're kind of questionable by state here in the United States too. Yeah, we have the right to bear arms as long as they're not dangerous and unusual. Ninja Stars kind of sort of fall in that category here for some reason, but tasers and pepper spray don't. You can absolutely use tasers and pepper spray down here. Oh, sweet. There you go. Well, then you guys really gotta hit the throttle on getting some people, educated. Educate people. And I don't mean a lot of people out there when I say that it sounds like I'm joking, but like here in the States we have this bad habit of someone saying educate people and all that happens is pamphlets get handed out. No, don't just hand out pamphlets. Teach them how to shoot properly. Teach them the enjoyment of actually going to a gun range. I guarantee you, it is the best way to do it. If the pamphlet is a fly taking a liberal to a gun range is the honey. Okay, 9 times out of 10, they'll probably fall in love with it. I'm not gonna lie to you. Because while they might not share your ideology, the concept of having an equalizer like a firearm at their hip starts sounding really friggin' appealing after a while, especially when it comes to smaller people. That's like straight up. Cameras over here, computers over here. That's why you got a lot of weird me looking back and forth like I'm on a drug or something. I'm not. I'm actually 10 years clean on drugs. So it is. It really is, and you will have that. We had something similar to it here in the States with the Tea Party movement back during Obama. Where we were trying to push for, keeping our gun rights the way that they are and trying to expand our gun rights to what they should be, because they're not what they should be, by the way. We have 2 gun laws on the books that restrict our access to certain firearms that are completely unconstitutional that we're trying to actively fight right now. The NFA and the GCA. But back during Obama, we tried to keep him from adding any more gun control. And, instead of just letting it happen through the natural system of public discourse, we ended up with this situation where the pro-gun groups and the Tea Party were kind of aligned, and then Obama started to use the IRS to target the Tea Party, and some gun groups got caught in the crossfire too, which I think, if you ask me, my personal opinion is that they were the original target to begin with. Yeah. 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 So, um, yeah, I get it. I mean, government sucks. They keep getting in the way of, like, that's one thing I like about the United States, and I really wish more countries would adopt it. Maybe not the same wording as our Constitution, because, I kind of feel like that's, like, our kind of pseudo trademarky thing, but something equivalent, right? I think all nations should have the first 10 amendments worded in their own fashion, but to mean the same thing in all nations across the globe. And I guarantee you the world would probably be a lot more, well, it wouldn't be perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it'd be a lot more fair. That's for sure. Especially once you get to the points about having fair and free representation in a courtroom. But yeah, that's kind of what I look at right now, and I'm sitting here thinking like, oh my god, I'm so glad that stupid bitch lost. Dodged a big old bullet with that one. No, I really wish you guys had better government, because I feel like if your government was doing its job, and by doing its job, I mean actually controlling your borders, your airports, your shorelines, managing the resources that you have, and actually doing the job, right? You wouldn't have a problem. Yeah, a lot of people do, and I really like. Don't misunderstand me. I like the idea of more United States friendly people coming to the United States. All for it, right? But at the same token, there's a part of my mind that says I really think you should stay home and try your damnedest to fix things in your home, because let's face it, you might like some things about the US, right? But the US is here, your home's over here. I get it. Your home's kind of rotting in, and the U.S. looks like that fancy, swanky hotel down the road, and that's fine. And you might even be able to live there, but like, it would be nice if you could just renovate your home and fix it up, or just rebuild your home. In some cases, that's what it takes. But I hate to use cheesy nerd movies in this fashion, but it's kind of like the whole Bilbo Baggins and the 10 dwarfs or whatever it was from The Hobbit. It's your home. They're perverting your home. That's not okay. I mean, you guys really do need. I wish I could clone Donald Trump and make him a Canadian citizen. And give him enough funding, backing, and educational resources, and I'd ship him up to Canada and turn him into your guys' version of Donald Trump, and then your guys' clone Donald Trump and the real thing can butt heads all day about who does a better job. That's supposed to be funny. I do a lot of weird, fucked up jokes, so but no, I really feel for you guys. It sucks. I hate seeing it, and I really wish it would change. At one point in time, I actually considered, as a kid, I was like, I wonder what it takes. He is. Huh. I didn't know he was. He could legally be the prime minister. Richest man on the planet, has basically limitless resources, including having like the best internet currently available, which I think that sucks, by the way, because the price tag's kind of high. But yeah, I mean, and he's good friends with a lot of people here in the States, too, so. It's a possibility. Maybe someone should float it to him. Maybe. I didn't actually realize he was also a Canadian citizen. I didn't realize that. I thought he had dual citizenship between the U.S. and South Africa, actually. But, I mean, if he's got one for Canada too, great. Perfect. um, hmm. The manipulation part of my brain is starting to turn and twist a little bit, so that's going to take me a little bit of thought. Who do I know in power or with some sort of higher voice that Elon will actually hear and take to some degree of thought? you know, I did not know his mother is Canadian. That's pretty impressive, actually. All right. Yeah, he is. He has the Star Spangled Eyeballs for Texas right now. I think is kind of what I'm getting as a vibe from him, and I think that has to do with the years of financial abuse he's had to endure, courtesy of California. If we're being honest, I don't blame him for that. California's a shithole. And it shouldn't be. It is the most gorgeous state in the union. You can go surfing and snowboarding on the same day. And because of the balls ass bad management of that state, it is terrible. Ugh. That's another sore spot for me. I hate, like, here's my general rule of things that I hate. Number one, seeing a good thing go to waste. Hate it. Always have, always will. Who needs who more? Technically, because of how things are set up, we kind of all need each other, but it shouldn't be that way. Yeah, California is basically Canada in America, pretty much. It's not a pretty sight, actually. And I do kind of get a little chuckle out of people saying, oh, let's make Canada the 51st state. And I'm like, you really don't want to do that. Especially not when it comes to the more liberal areas, because... Yeah, sorry about that. Oh, OBS up again. OBS is, I'm sure, as you know, a broadcasting software that you can download from Steam for free. Oh, I don't doubt that. The problem is that when you add that mixture to the United States, your majority might end up being Republican. But when you add the mixture to the United States, it would tilt the balance towards the Democrats. And the reason for that is because the makeup of the United States versus Canada. We have like 4 liberal states with high populations that have like immense amounts of electoral authority and power in this country. California has like, I think, I could be wrong, it's like 35 or 40 votes on the Electoral College. Pull that up too. I should know this. I'm an American, right? But it is a lot of information to retain. When you actually when you try to remember it all. Yeah, they have 54 electoral votes in California. That effectively gives them an unfair advantage over the rest of the country, effectively, and that is true. The problem is that electoral votes are kind of weird how they work in the states. They're based off of the census, and the reason that Texas and California, have such a high electoral vote count is because illegal migrants count as census material. something people don't know. When a census officer comes to your door and knocks on your door, they ask you how many people live in your house. That is for the apportionment of electoral votes. That's why illegal immigration of any sort, north or south, is considered unacceptable in the United States. That's another reason, anyway. Is it allows certain groups, Republicans, Democrats, whatever, to take advantage of illegal immigration that's not supposed to be happening in the first place. The only reason that it doesn't pan out that way so much is because we have census counts every 10 years, not every year. So if it was on a yearly basis, these numbers would probably look a lot different, actually. Especially New York. New York would probably gain one or two, given all the illegal migrants that Texas shipped to them, just as a big middle finger to their mayor in New York City. That was pretty funny. That I'm not gonna lie, it's tragic. The human trafficking is tragic, but seeing someone have to put their money where their mouth is in politics between two states, that was funny. I wasn't aware Maine had 4 electoral college votes. I thought we only had 2. Well, things change. But yeah, it really does have to do with the apportionment of population. So, yes, it's true. What do I think of? Alberto. You know, there is actually an alternative route for that to happen. And instead of making Canada a state, we could just make it territory. It's largely symbolic, and you get the same protections of the Constitution, basically. You wouldn't really have any say, per se, on American politics, but at the same time, largely, outside of giving you our Constitution, we more or less would stay out of your everything. And I think that would probably be the better way to go about it, and giving all the hell that is going on in the British Isles right now with their immigration crisis and riots and all that garbage. I kind of feel like they got enough on their plate. If you catch my drift. Like, I'm not opposed to turning someone into a temporary territory just to help you get things in order, but, you know. Yeah, exactly. That's going to be the big problem. And a lot of people don't ever go for it. Things have to get really bad for people to go for that option. Which I'm not saying they won't. I'm not saying they will. But I'm going to say something that a lot of Canadians don't like to hear, and it is the truth. Canada is a smaller economy than a lot of the world, especially the United States. So, you know, at some point, oh no, I get it. It's not negotiable. It's not. What I'm actually referring to is not something that falls in the realm of legality, so to speak. It's the same thing that happened during the French Revolution. When people get hungry enough, bad things happen, right? And I'm not saying it should happen. I hope to fuck it doesn't. But realistically speaking, between the United States, Canada, and Mexico, we have the resources here for us to survive basically indefinitely. You guys do rely a lot on imports from the United States. You do. And Mexico, too. And we have the bigger economy, and we have more access to more resources because we are the global reserve currency right now. It kind of affords us certain benefits that you guys just don't have. The years of the British Crown owning territories and being able to claim authority over the world are done. That's been done for a long time. And unfortunately, Canada, Australia, and India were the 3 places that got hit the hardest because that's done. Because they have nothing left to give, really, except for their authority. That is true. But how many of those resources are directly consumable and easy to access. Here in the US, we don't have accessibility problems. We have highways that stretch all over this place. If you actually looked at a highway map of this place, you probably wouldn't want to move here. You'd probably be worried about hearing semi trucks every 2 minutes. But we have more accessibility to our resources. And we also have the bigger oil reserves too. We have Alaska, we have the Great Plains, and we have Texas. Most of which are barely even touched. We've been sapping you guys of your guys' resources, Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, so we didn't have to touch it. So that way, when you guys do finally dry up, we can sit there with our oil and set the price, basically. That's the long-term strategy for that. People don't know that because they forget that that's the strategy written down on paper in the United States State Department. That is the long-term world negotiation strategy for the United States as far as oil is concerned. It's why China is trying to invest in other technologies that don't rely on oil so much. People don't realize that they're doing this stuff. BRICS is forming for a reason. It's not just an anomaly. It's because America is the is the global reserve currency because of our oil strategies. Is the only thing that keeps us that way. Russia's trying to get out of it too. And you know what? As an American, I can't believe I'm saying this. I don't fucking blame them. We've treated them all like crap, and they've treated us like crap. It's been kind of a vicious cycle of abuse between the three of us. The three top nations of the world are pretty much set on abusing each other on pretty much a daily basis. And it's sad and disgusting, but it's the truth. You know. But to be fair, I will go back further in history and say that that's pretty much the norm for human history, isn't it? I mean, look at the relationships between ancient Greece and ancient Rome. They didn't exactly get along on everything either. Just saying. Yeah, but realistically, we have enough uranium as it is. The United States has enough nuclear capacity to flatten pretty much the whole planet. Russia does too. China's developing the same capabilities. I really don't think uranium's that much of a problem. And our nuclear facilities, well, we don't have enough to really have that be a problem. We really don't, actually. And actually, we have uranium here in the States too. People forget that all the time. Lithium too, actually. Funny story about the lithium. We've been strip mining the Middle East, and people can argue about, it's about the opium and the oil over in the Middle East. It was actually trying to strip mine the lithium out of the Middle East. Funny story, we actually have like 3 different massive lithium reserves right here in the US that we won't touch for, land ownership reasons. One's actually in the state of Maine. And we won't touch it because of what it takes to extract lithium. We could make our own lithium batteries right here. 100%. And we won't do it because in order to extract lithium from the soil, it's 1,000 times worse than strip mining for gold. It really is. And coal too. Like, it's terrible. It's god awful. The procedure for getting lithium out of the ground is god awful. And that's why we won't do it here. Not saying that I approve of, Chinese slave labor, but and that's another thing too about the unproven oil reserves. That unproven part is a really, really big sentence to say in that, or a really big word to put in there, because there's nothing saying that they're not all interconnected underground either. We don't know if they are or not. We're just assuming that they aren't. The same thing with the natural gas. We don't know if these things are interconnected or not. We're just tapping into them and using them. So effectively, and this goes to a whole lot of conspiracy theory nonsense that a lot of people, again, give me crap for, but you don't know what's 10 miles under the crust. You don't. There's just no way to know it. And anything beyond that, you're kind of shooting, you're throwing rubber bands down a dark hallway and you have no idea what you're throwing them at. But There is a theory that states that a lot of these fuel reserves and stuff could theoretically be linked together. So, that's kind of another don't count your chickens before they hatch moment. We could be tapping in. I could be in Wyoming drilling oil out, and you could see a declination in oil content in Canada because I'm sucking all your oil out in Wyoming. But territorial claims over the Northwest Passage. I got to be very careful about how I word this because a lot of what I believe is based off of ancient documents. There comes a certain point in time in politics and ownership of certain things where certain documents, whether you want to admit it or not, have an expiration date. If I have a deed for a house and I die, that deed either gets transferred to someone else or ends up in a auction somewhere, unfortunately. Actually, I'm smart. I am going to have my will set up to deed my property to my kids, but the point is that I feel like certain land contracts need to be kind of reevaluated to see their legitimacy. And again, I do have to be careful about how I say that because one of my favorite states is one of those contracts, by the way. Territorial claims over the Northwest Passage. I don't know. I kind of feel like... Actually, I know the answer for Canada's problem. I literally just thought of it. There should be a region-by-region vote of your people's populace. And it should be based off of territory, based off of the population. I would say that the amount needs to be about 70%. See, here in the United States, we have a mechanism called secession, where you can secede from the Union. It takes a lot, and it's not easy to do. I think you guys in Canada should be able to do the same thing. Not necessarily to secede to the United States, per se. But, yeah. As far as the Northwestern Corridor claims, or the Northwestern Passage, I'll be blunt. We've had to live with the format of Alaska, the lower 48, and Canada for so long the way that it's been. I don't see it as being a problem moving forward. Would it make things easier if we had a highway that shot right straight through, that we controlled, that we didn't have to worry about, immigration policies and all this other crap? Sure. It would be easier, it'd be cheaper, whatever. It'd make things easier for people in Alaska, but I'm kind of reminded of what one of the Alaskan natives told me, and that is, white man was the most toxic thing to happen to them as a culture in Native Alaskan heritage. And when you build a corridor like that, and you open up that particular pipeline, you can't really shut it off, and a lot of the native heritage disappears. I've seen it in the state that I was born in, which is Maine. I've seen it happen in Alaska. I moved down to Arkansas, and their native cultures are basically dead down there. They don't exist. So, in the same way, I would agree industrially, it would be impressive and useful for us to have some sort of corridor bouncing from the States to Alaska. It'd be beneficial in some financial way. In a cultural way, I would say it'd be a net negative, massive net negative. There are a lot of things about Native Alaskan culture that would vanish overnight, and I know I'm white, but I take issue with that. A lot of my friends in Bush, Alaska are Native Alaskan elders and families that taught me how to do stuff like sewing leather and stuff. And watching that stuff disappear like it has in the lower 48, it turns my stomach a little bit, we'll put it that way. I mean, you could always make them a part of like Montana or North Dakota, right? I don't know. I mean, Canadian politics are not really my forte, but I do know about tariffs, and whether Trudeau wants to admit it or not, they do work. They might not be the most friendly option, but they do work. And it's regrettable to see the civilian populations of both places be affected by what is effectively the two nerds from Family Guy slapping each other, uh, politically speaking, and the rest of us just have to sit here and suffer and watch it effectively. Um, yeah, but to the heritage point, I hate seeing heritages disappear. Um, so I'm not like Elizabeth Warren. I actually have documented Indian heritage. Passamaquoddy tribe on both sides of my family. My mother, 34 relatives back. My dad's side of the family is not by blood, it's actually through marriage. My grandmother, my dad's stepmother, her name was Molly Parker. She passed away a few years ago, and she was the chief of the Passamaquoddy Reservation surrounding Princeton, Maine. Um, she was the daughter of the previous chief. Yeah, yeah. Well, we call Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas around here because that FAUX means more than the rest of it. Anyway, so in my time being alive, and I saw this in Alaska too, the biggest thing I have against the Mexican border, and the biggest reason why I'm for shutting down both the northern and the southern border, is because of the businesses that the cartels handle between themselves and the organized crime units that exist, the over 1,000 that exist in Canada, and the fact that native tribes are the ones that are the heaviest impacted by it, even more so than actually other colored communities. I've seen, back when meth was a big problem, back when crack cocaine was a big problem, I had seen 6 of my relatives die. I had seen people that I'd gone to school with in treatment centers because they couldn't stop doing this in a corner because they couldn't get their fix. And it's just like, I get it, the stuff hurts, that these tariffs hurt, but the other option is worse. The other option is people along the lines of me and the military and a whole bunch of other pissed off and armed Americans flood the southern border and take Mexico by force. And we don't want that. No one wants that. I'm going to say capital no one. All right? I can't emphasize enough that no one wants that. And it would be explicitly to eliminate the drug cartels. Okay, 100%. The problem with that, and the reason why no one wants that, there's about 70 different reasons why you don't. But I can list off about 3 of them off the top of my head. Number 1, when you do that, the people that do the removal are oftentimes the ones that replace the people that they removed. And it's usually way worse when they do. Number 2, even if you have a complete pullout afterwards, you have a massive power vacuum that usually sucks in other countries in the surrounding area. And number 3, there's no guarantee that the drugs get destroyed in the process. So you literally have the problem without the face of the problem, and everyone's just kind of tossing around the drugs like it's a free for all. So I am absolutely against the U.S. invading Mexico. Now, if we are asked to assist in a military-style operation, that changes things. I would agree with that. But forceful invasion, no. I'm against it, 100%. I've always been against. I was in school when I was in middle school and high school when Bush and the whole 9/11 thing happened. Yeah, I'm a '90s baby. I'm apparently a boomer according to some of these kids, which don't even know what that word really means. But it's a concept of, I saw what we went through in the Middle East. I saw that it did nothing to improve the situation. I saw that all that it did was cost us resources and lives. And realistically, probably the most callous thing I can say online. Um, we should have taken a vote in Congress to actively go to war instead of just poking the bear, so to speak, as far as starting a conflict. We did not have a congressional approval vote to actually go to war. All right. Um, the one congressional approval that we did have was to take out Saddam Hussein, and to investigate the situation surrounding 9/11. We did not have actual congressional authority to go to war. It was a conflict without what is required under the U.S. Constitution. Yeah, I really wish Mexico could clean up too. I actually hear that once you get past the drugs, the cartels, and some of the poverty down there, some of the beaches, fishing, and touristy areas are actually really nice. Um, I'm a northern kid. I don't do the heat very well. I lived in Arkansas for 6 years and hated every second of it. So, give me the cold, man. Give me the cold. Um, I would like to see. Yeah. I actually think that figure is probably a worldwide figure at this point. A lot of people want the cartels gone because they've been such a problem, and like human trafficking of children, fentanyl, crack, cocaine. Uh, I'm gonna laugh a little bit at this one, but marijuana. Back in the day it was pot, but nowadays that's less so. But it's just like it seems like every time we turn around and there's a conversation about Mexico, it's one of three things, okay? And they're never good, right? It's about the cartels, the illegal immigration, or some sort of corruption in their government. And it's just like, we'd never build a tall enough wall. It's just like, you'll never build one tall enough to keep that kind of stuff from being read off in our news cycles here in the U.S. Because we're an adjoining country. We're stuck listening to it. It's the same way with here. The same thing here in Maine, actually. I get a lot of Canadian politics stuff here in Maine. And back when I was a kid, we used to have the old rabbit ears, that you had the single cable that you screwed into the back of your TV. We actually used to be able to get some French Canadian channels that had the English subtitles on the bottom. And I used to try to read what they were saying so I could try to understand what they were saying. 9 times out of 10, the translations were gobbledygook, but, you just kind of tried the best you could. But it was actually pretty interesting. It was really funny when I was like 5 or 6 years. Actually, it was probably about 7 now that I think on it. Sitting here with the antenna ears, and I get like JJ the jet plane, but he's speaking in French, and it's just like, cool. I don't doubt that there's a lot of really cool places in the mountains down there too. I've only seen like satellite imagery and stuff like that, but I get bored sometimes. I'm not doing streams or video recordings of me playing a game or like Pal World or something. Or I'm not outside doing something like I was today, which was snow removal. Kill me now. I sometimes get bored and decide to cyberstalk other countries and see what their landscapes look like. So, it's just kind of a hobby. Don't bother looking into the Gaza Strip, though. That's a wasteland. It's a desolate, destroyed area. Nothing to see there. Which is unfortunate because they're like the size of Rhode Island. They shouldn't be going through that either. I really do have a problem with conflict, like, worldwide. I hate it. I hate watching it. And, gonna sound like the Antichrist for a second. I know news is usually 2. I know language is, what it is. And I know that last word is official. Don't I cannot tell you what the first two words are. And that's just guessing based off of their appearance, and I'm usually pretty accurate on guessing on that because I took French for a year in high school, and it's pretty easy to spot certain similarities, but I can't speak it. Asking me to speak French, Canadian, Spanish, or any other language other than English is like asking a bull to do calculus. Good luck. Good luck. They tried to teach me Native Alaskan, actually the Yupik language, for the Yupik peoples of the Kuskokwim River, and I my tongue is all thumbs, so to speak. I can't, as an adult, I can't do it anymore. As a kid, probably could have, but yeah, no, I another bit of annoying news that I did find out though. It is a real thing that the United States is looking to not nuke, but remove the antenna over the air based broadcasting in the United States. So, just thought I'd throw that out there so people could kind of. I should probably do a separate video covering that. I might record one up and just post it to my my page covering the details of it. But yeah, they're looking to do away with that. Yeah, and that's like really frustrating because I remember back when I was a kid, all right, I am a fortunate child. I got to experience the experience of having my great grandparents still be alive for a great number of years of my existence. And in fact, they didn't pass away until I was like 26. So I got to hear all kinds of crazy World War II stories from both of my great grandparents. My great grandmother and my great grandfather. One of those stories involved Canadian snipers being pretty damn badass back in World War II. And now it's just I can't see it, and it's unfortunate. It sucks. It does. Like, and I'm gonna throw this out there too. You guys being weak is actually detrimental to our national security here in the States. People don't understand that. A lot of people don't actually understand that there's a correlation of national security between our three countries because of our geography. And that's why all right, hot take, personal hot take, okay? Because I understand a little bit of Donald Trump's attitude. Yeah, but I feel like they've become somewhat less since then, But nowadays, like, people don't understand proper geopolitics. So when people sit here and say stuff like, there's a trade route between Canada and Greenland, and the Arctic Circle is opening up so we can send, shipping vessels and submarines. They don't understand that Canada's a part of the national defense strategy for the United States. So is Mexico, by the way. You're separate nations, but you're incorporated into that strategy, and I feel like a lot of people kind of forget that. But more to what I was saying about my hot take, my big hot take here is actually relating to Donald Trump. I don't think he intends to make Canada a part of the United States. And to be honest with you, I think these tariffs are kind of like lighting a fire under a bull's ass, trying to motivate. Really, I think that's what it is. I really don't think. In order for a bluff like that to work, as someone who's played Yu-Gi-Oh for all of his childhood life, in order for a bluff to work, you have to look like you have the cojones to follow through with it, right? And the best way to shut down the cartels, which are detrimental to the southern security measures for our national security, which is Mexico, like I said before, you gotta cut off their business entirely. And if they try to get business from like terrorist organizations, great. Then we can label them internationally as terrorist organizations, not just here in the United States. and that has a whole other set of things going with it, right? That is fire that I don't even think the cartels want to mess with, to be honest. Because when the United States does it, it's just the president effectively running his mouth. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Um, and we need to. We need to. 100%. I want to see anti-nuclear missile technology from the northernmost tip of North America all the way down to central Latin America, and I'd love to see the same thing happen for South America as well. 100%. I am tired of the saber rattling with the nukes. I want nukes to disappear. I am sick and tired of hearing it. Um, and if we have systems that make those weapons obsolete because defensively they're just far superior, um, spot on. I love the idea. Um, I want nuclear weapons to go extinct. That's like my wet dream, right? Is nuclear weapons going extinct. The only reason I want anyone to have singular nuclear warheads is in case of like orbital level emergencies where we have like some weird Armageddon movie-esque event thing happen. I don't want. I'm so tired of Russia, China, America, as a whole, like all the different parts of America and Europe threatening each other with nukes. It's dumb. I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of waking up and looking on the sunrise to see if I see a secondary sun somewhere. I'm done with it. And a lot of people are too. And I feel like if you went to any one of these nations and you actually had a real discussion about nuclear weapons, they'd say the same exact fucking thing. And I'm not talking about their politicians, I'm talking about the civilians. Most civilians in most countries hate nukes. A lot of people don't understand that. But yeah. Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, that's really what we're trying to put a stop to. And those triad gangs, they're not like the Japanese Yakuza. Those are the Chinese triad gangs. And the Chinese government's doing nothing to stop it. In fact, they're just letting it happen carte blanche. They said that they were going to do something about it, and they didn't. They never did. Never. Because they get kickbacks from the triad. We all know that. We've known that for, God, the last 50 plus years. Um, yeah. So that's kind of the big problem that Trump has with the fentanyl. Actually, is that right there. If you guys eliminate that problem in Canada, you'd probably throw the border wide open. um, and that's like no joke. The problem is not just that the government in Canada is feckless and just weak at this point. The problem is that they're refusing to do their job. If they were doing their job, you wouldn't have been able to make that comment because they would not be doing that kind of business. Like, facts are facts. Same thing's true with Mexico. You would not have made that comment in my chat if your government was actually doing its job. And we had the same thing here in the States. I'm reminded of the Bush years and the Obama years with the meth crisis here in the States. People making drugs that make your teeth, your hair, and your skin fall off in their bathtubs. Like, what is going on here? It's the same thing. It's because they refuse to do their jobs when it comes to enforcing the law. And I don't have proof of this. So YouTube can kiss my butt about, censorship BS, but I do think some officials, government officials, I don't know how high up, I feel like they, in Canada and Mexico, I know they get it in Mexico. Everyone knows that. That's kind of a universal truth. But I'm starting to feel like the Mexican cartels and the triad are kicking off some of your government officials a little bit of something on the side, if you catch my drift. And if I were the Canadian, the other part of the Canadian government responsible of looking into it, I would potentially look to see if there were any financial ties between the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party, because, those kind of things can cut both ways occasionally, and look to see who's doing what, just to make sure. I'd have everyone re-vetted. 100%. Right down to their private emails. But that's just me. That's just me being paranoid, but I've seen that kind of behavior in places before. Um, Back when I was in my young and feisty years, I'd seen it on the regular here in Maine, actually. We had public officials being bribed by drug dealers to get away with their crimes all the time. All the time. It wasn't on like the state level, it was just like your local officials, but yeah. Oh yeah. This was back when marijuana was still illegal in the state of Maine, and it was more predominantly about marijuana than anything else, but we did have some of the harder drugs too. But yeah, no, 100% it happens, and I'm hoping that that report makes its way to the right ears in your government, and hopefully they start doing something about it. Because that was literally Trump's biggest complaint about your guys' border, was that fentanyl issue. And it was also the Terrys coming from overseas too, because Maine bears. I hate saying this one out loud. Mm-hmm. We're talking about my home, and I hate trashing my home state so much, but 2 of the 9/11 terrorists came across the border from Canada into the state of Maine and achieved legal documentation in the state of Maine, including a driver's license for one of the terrorists. I hate saying that out loud. It hurts. Oh, it's so disgusting. Anyway, that one, I will never be able to say that with a face that doesn't just recoil in disgust because of that happened. But yes, the border between Canada and America, it is an issue, but it's also not an issue. It's an issue when violent gangs come from the US, right, and go to Canada. I'm sure any Canadian would agree with that, right? That's an issue. That's a problem. The problem is that a lot of those violent gangs, they don't necessarily come from the U.S., if you catch my drift. A lot of them start out in Mexico and Argentina. Well, not Argentina anymore, but you get the drift. That same general locale, Central America. A lot of them do. The days of the 1950s where the biker gang with the chain from Mad Max, that doesn't really exist so much anymore. A lot of bikers nowadays are genuinely good people. A lot of them are. I mean, a little bit racist sometimes, but different time frame, you know? You can't... I get real fed up with that standard. I really do. Are you gonna seriously sit here and hold a 90-year-old lady who was raised in, like, the 20s to the modern sensibilities of, like, what's acceptable for racial speech? Really? She's in her 90s. She's not gonna change for you or anybody else. Same thing's true with my grandfather. But well, okay, so the drugs. The drugs I'm going to take issue with. The guns, yeah, you're probably right. We probably send more guns to Canada than we do get guns from Mexico. That's probably true. The illegal aliens definitely come more from Mexico than anywhere else, but let's just face it, that seems to be the pipeline for all of it, and we are actively trying to stop it. The drugs, I kind of feel like, is kind of a mutual back and forth at this point. Like, we've kind of cycled through the point where it was Mexico for a time, Canada for a time, and the United States for a time. That was the chief, like, drug exporter-importer for illicit drugs. But the guns, I would argue, probably mostly come from the U.S. Unless you're a cartel member with Russian gang, with Russian connections, and then it comes from somewhere completely different. We all know where that comes from. And man, I would love to get a gold-plated AK. Between the U.S. and Canada. Okay. Illegals. Well, if we're talking about illegals that migrate from the southern border with Mexico and then shoot through to Canada, oh, definitely 100%, right? Drugs, I kind of feel like there's a lot of back and forth on the drugs. But the guns, I'm not going to sit here and try to stand and tell you that that doesn't happen because I know it happens. Um, but a lot of the gangs and illegals do not actually. They don't start in the U.S. We'll put it that way. It is not their first illegal border that they cross is between the U.S. and Canada. It's largely, it's largely from Mexico. And actually, us hampering down on the Mexican border, you'll start to see a less of an influx on the northern border too. That'll slow down too, quite a bit, which would make your job a lot easier. Which is why Donald Trump is trying to put pressure on both Mexico and Canada to do the right thing and close their borders, because we're trying to round these people up to send them back to where they came from. And we can't do that if they run off to Canada. That's another thing too. Like, Donald Trump is not just sitting there saying we need you to secure your border on a whim. There are tactical reasons for it, and it is largely to remove the violent illegal criminal base that's happened to find its way at our doorstep and your doorstep as well. But there again, I'm not even going to argue about the guns going north to Canada. Look, we're talking about the United States. The United States accounts for, what, 46 of the total world's gun population in general? So, I mean, come on. Where obviously there are guns being smuggled to other countries from the U.S. I'm not dumb. And I have no doubt that Canada is one of them. But the drugs, I really do feel like that's kind of a hot potato that gets tossed between the three different countries. And it does need to stop. That hot potato needs to be smashed into the ground because it's gone cold. If you catch my drift, it's old hat, and we're all kind of sick of watching it happen, for sure, 100%. I don't want to see another meth epidemic. I'm sick of the fentanyl epidemic. I don't want to hear anything about the word crocodile ever the frig again on Twitter. Like, this stuff needs to stop, 100%. And the only way we're going to stop it is to step up and stop it. I mean, just being honest here. And unfortunately, for the last 4 years, prior to this year, we had 3 different countries whose governments were complicit in allowing these things to happen. And now the United States finally has someone who's clamping down on, saying, no, this stops now. And you have and I'm going to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole. You have a George Soros, WEF, World Economic Forum, globalist wackadoo for a prime minister in Justin Trudeau for the last, 10 years. And you have basically feckless and useless leadership that's bought off by the cartels from Mexico for, I can't even count how many years that was. So, yes, he will be. He absolutely will be. 100%. I feel like, okay, I personally feel like if you have Pierre for 10 years, okay, hear me out. You have Donald Trump, and then we get J.D. Vance afterwards, and we get some good reforms down in Mexico, some good government people down there who really want to crack down on stuff. And really want to strengthen, bonds between the 3 nations. I feel like then we could start coming together and building a real, proper, cooperative continental missile defense system that protects all 3 from the threats that come from outside of this hemisphere. And it needs to happen. It does. Because, no one in this world should have to live under the threat of nuclear hellfire. It shouldn't happen. It's a reality that it does happen, but it shouldn't. Okay? I used to do this thing when I was a kid, and I'd say, if history followed the correct course, it wouldn't have happened that way, but it did. And that's my issue, is literally just like, we need to, not just between US and Canada, but US, Canada, and Mexico, things need to be fixed. And the only way it's going to happen is the cartels get removed and the borders get secured. And the Chinese drugs stop flowing in. And I think that's... Look, Donald Trump's a bull in a China shop, but he's not wrong. Okay? He doesn't really... Oh, fuck it, I'm going to say it anyway. He does a good job at intimidating people into doing what he wants. Outright. He's good at that. He will literally sit here and play chicken with Justin Trudeau, make everyone in Canada miserable with tariffs, understanding that it's going to raise prices in the United States, and he's a single-term president this time around because he's already had his first term. He's on his second term. He can't have a third term. So he's basically unleashed to do whatever the hell he wants, and he's going to use it. He's going to use it. He doesn't care who gets elected next. He wants stuff fixed right now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah, well, I'm not saying I promote or advocate for this kind of thing, but certain Mexican leaders end up in certain bad positions because of the cartels. I'm just going to leave it at that. It has happened before, it can happen again, and I hate to say it, but if she steps on the wrong toes, she's not in a good position to do anything about it because she has weakened her own defensive network of security. She has. She was a liberal who pushed for the whole DEI in her own thing. And I know people like roll their eyes and say, oh God, he's mentioning DEI again. Look, Donald Trump, one of his bodyguards when he was attempted to be shot in the head, or actually he was shot in the ear, was about half his friggin' height. And they put her out there because she was a woman. There's just a certain reality to bodyguard details that you can't diversify too much, because if they are not physically capable of standing up tall enough to do the job, you really shouldn't have them there. It's just proper planning to not have short people protecting tall people. It's just the reality of the modern weapon. I mean, a sniper rifle is a sniper rifle is a sniper rifle. When it comes to the human watermelon, if your job is to protect someone who's 6 foot something and you're about 3'4", well, you're not able to protect their watermelon very well now, are you? But anyway, yeah, no. I don't like her either. She is part of the problem. She is. A lot of people like to sit there and say, well, Donald Trump's the one causing the issues. Donald Trump's the one trying to fix this shit. Are you kidding? This stuff was broken to begin with. Yeah, I'm glad we didn't. Actually, we kind of did in Maine. Okay, so Maine Politics 101. We are a purple state, which means that we're very contrarian in our nature. Quote unquote. Actually, what really happens in my state is our coastal elites dictate policy through the state, either because they've bought off enough of our representatives to do whatever they want, or they rig the system up so they have more representatives than anyone else in the state because they have the money to do so. My state is probably the definition of corruption, second only to probably either New York or California. Now, here's where that's not so much a problem. I can imagine. I can imagine. If you don't call someone by their pronouns, you're a bigot. Oh, I can imagine how that sounds every day. Ugh. We almost got there though. We were really close to it. Thankfully, we didn't get there. We did not get there, and I hope. Well, from what I've been seeing on X, Democrats have not learned their lesson. Um, it would be very, very nice to see diversity. Let's just call it what it is. Dysfunction, exclusion, and what's a good one for I? Intolerance. Let's just call it what it is, because it is what it is. It's just not. It's not worth having. If you can't do something based off of merit, you shouldn't be doing anything at all. Just outright, like, I'm terrible at long range shooting. I'm not going to apply to be a sniper because I'm smart enough to know better. But yeah, okay, I've seen fake BS like that before, but doesn't matter. He's nominated for HHS secretary. You can't really do anything about it now. You're gonna see it. And yeah, I get it. Canada is going to be mad. Oh, sweet. Pierre said something. Here we go. All right, retaliate dollar for dollar. That's fine. Put all the tariff revenues into help for affected workers. Okay, whatever. Bring it home. Tax cut. Scrap liberal anti-resource law C-69. Thank you. That's another thing. Bring a truly free trade within Canada by knocking down interprovincial borders. Rebuild their military. You know, it's kind of funny. It's almost like, you know, yeah, exactly. It shouldn't be about your skin color or you know, disability within the function, with it, you know, notwithstanding the function of the job, you know. I gotta agree with Liz Churchill on that one. I gotta. Sorry, but as a part of stopping human and drug trafficking, close your borders. Sorry, but it's the truth. Of course, you forgot the most important thing, which is stopping mass immigration and deporting all these South Asian criminals who are smuggling fentanyl into the U.S. He's not wrong there, but I kind of feel like that comes more from Mexico than Canada, a lot. But I don't know. A lot of this kind of seems a little toothless, but it's kind of, yeah, this just reads like toothless. You want to retaliate dollar for dollar on tariffs? I'm not going to pull the number back up again, my dude, because, like, literally a dollar for dollar tariff fight, the U.S. still wins. Sorry. We just have more money. It's one of the benefits, again, of being the, the literally the global dollar standard. It's the way that it is. Past massive energy emergency. I keep misreading that. Let's see. Well, one of the biggest things you guys need to do in Canada is the same thing we need to do down here. Remove friggin' taxes. Oh my god. I get it. We're some of the first world nations. We are supposed to have services. Does it have to cost me the shirt off my back to feed someone that I don't even know every time they're hungry? get doing it once in a while, but every time I'm running out of shirts here, people. Oh my word. I'm all for feeding the hungry, but I don't want to freeze myself to death in the process. Ugh. I don't know about the knocking down the interprovincial barriers. I kind of feel like that's... No, we shouldn't. We shouldn't. And it's way too high. Way too high. Like, our founding fathers in the United States, one of the key things that we went to war with Britain over was a 3% tax rate. Now it's up to 30. Let that sink in. Our income tax is basically 30%. 1/3 of our income in taxes and fees to the government. Taxes need to, like, income taxes especially need to disappear. And I don't like it, but if you need to have a tax, I would rather deal with purchase taxes than income taxes. I didn't know anything about that. I would like to know more, actually, to be honest. I don't know anything about interprovincial protectionism. I wasn't aware that that was a thing. Actually. That is a topic I'd be very interested to read up on at some point. Okay. I gotta stop Pierre there. Whoa. Hang on. Am I reading your comment correctly? It is easier to trade between provinces and states than between What the Oh, wow. Yeah, that is pretty dumb. That's like Androscoggin County, Maine refusing to do business with Oxford County, Maine, despite the fact that they're number one in the same state and number two right next to each other. What the? Oh, that's... No wonder you guys are stereotypically considered so nice to everybody, because if you're not, you'd probably want to about kill each other up there. Holy shit. That would drive me insane. I Nope. There's a somewhat of a sci-fi horror movie that's got like a black main cast. It's called Nope. That whole movie, just for what you just said there. Nope. Nope. I'll stay in my higher than hell taxed state of Maine, where I have to pay almost $2,000 a year in property taxes, have a 5.5% purchase tax, and my vehicle is taxed at over $150 each year. On top of, the state income tax, which is approximately $500 to $1,000, and the federal income tax, which is a percentage of about 30% that is supposed to include stuff like Medicare, Social Security, etc. That all sums out to about 30%. I would rather deal with that than deal with what you just said there. That is nuts. I guess I'm not really understanding that very well, because I guess it must just be an American thing, because like we don't really have, okay, with the exception of New York State, California, and Oregon, we don't really have that much interconnected conflict with trade, really. Like, the trade between the states is quite free, typically. Except for the difference in taxes and fees and stuff. So I guess I don't quite necessarily understand that entirely, but I will be looking that up after the stream so I can do some research on it, because I don't want to come back to the Canada topic later and not understand that very well. Liberals must put aside their partisan interests and recall Parliament to pass. Hey, while you're recalling Parliament, why don't you vote for a new Prime Minister while you're at it? Just saying. You could. I mean, see, I don't necessarily know about that being justified. That's kind of okay, to be fair, Canada does already have tariffs on US goods. At the same token, I kind of feel like the United States also already has tariffs on Canadian goods. So, and I feel like if I were to actually pull up the numbers, yeah, because Justin Trudeau doesn't want to go anywhere. He wants to keep his power. Exactly, exactly. His whole party's probably sitting there saying the same thing. So at the same token, where people are saying it's unjustified, it's justified, I also kind of want people to remember to look at it through the lens of tariffs are quite common in international trade. So I'm not going to pretend to be the tariff expert, but I'm going to sit here, shrug, and say, the United States has tariffs on some of its goods in the hundreds of percentages in some cases. Absolutely. We also tariff goods coming in to the point where we don't even have them here, one of which being the electric mini truck, actually, or just the mini truck in general. There's a whole story about how chickens are responsible for that. I would recommend going to the Fat Electrician to find the chicken truck video to explain that more in depth, because I don't remember all the fine details to it, and he did a really good job at being in depth with that. Tariffs are not anything new, and I'm not necessarily sure that 25% is this big game-changing number, and I would want to actually do the math for myself, to actually sit down and say, okay, well, you're putting another 25% on of a tariff on what exactly? And what's the current tariff on that? Oh, is it like 500 and now you're just making it 525%? I mean, is that really that big of a deal? That's kind of my big question. I'm an action role-playing game guy, so numbers kind of matter a little bit to me. And if what Donald Trump did sounded worse than it actually was, I definitely would want to look into it before I said too much about it. I really don't feel like taking the justified. Yeah, exactly. Our media is saying it could cause severe economics issues in the United States too, which everyone in the United States basically heard that, and you universally heard everyone call them a liar over it, basically. They were saying stuff like we'd never be able to afford to build a house in the United States again, and all this other garbage. It's like, it's 25%. I was looking at some of the Grok figures earlier, and some of the already existing tariffs are up in the hundreds of percentile ranges. Like, I saw one that I swear said 576%. So at what point does 25% really matter that much? I gotta wonder. Is this gonna be, oh, you're paying $20 for a dozen of eggs, or is it gonna be you're paying an extra 10 cents for a dozen of eggs? Okay, and I mean, I really got to ask that question before I get too far into the weeds about how bad this is really going to be. And that's the problem with stuff like this in international politics, and why, generally speaking, this is like my first international like stream of any kind, because I don't usually cover international politics because of just how much time you have to sink into researching the topic before you actually start having like 100% accurate information, so you know every little nook and cranny of it. Yeah, exactly. Both countries are about to find the hell out. Not that it's a good thing, or maybe it could be. Who knows? Maybe it'll be the thing that turns it all around, right? Who knows? I mean, shit, we're talking about Donald Trump and we're talking about Elon Musk. Elon Musk has been dodging child support for the last 20 years, and Donald Trump has, I did say Elon Musk on that one, and Donald Trump has, like, the luck of the maverick on his side 100% of the time. I swear to God. I swear to God. Him not getting perfectly domed by that shot, there's something afoot somewhere, I swear. That's not just him, the shooter, being a bad shot. Someone, I think Shinzo Abe was like, just turn your head this little bit to look at that chart, and you won't end up like me. And that like split second or something. I don't know how else to put it. I really don't. Maybe this will actually be the thing that leads to more negotiations that could lead to a missile defense network that covers Mexico, the United States, and Canada. Maybe. Who knows? A lot of people like to naysay the bad things. 98% of the best things that have happened in my life, yeah, exactly, but 98% of the bad things in my life are responsible for the best things in my life happening. So, I'm not going to write off this whole tariff thing. I'm just saying Justin Trudeau's not doing himself any favors by running his suck to a government with an economy the size of the United States. And he doesn't want to turn this into a war of attrition, because it's not going to work out in his favor. It won't. Because, and I'm going to have to use the French Revolution as a model here, you might have great natural resources, that's true. But to some extent, you have to acknowledge the fact that when it comes to food production, the United States has you beat. We do. Because it's what we're the fattest nation on the planet for a reason. We eat like crazy. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Thank you. We have the same thing in computer science and aerospace here in the United States. Just keep bowing away from it. We definitely, between the two countries, have the capability. But, like, your government and my government right now seem like they just want to butt heads all the time. And it's kind of annoying. I'm not going to lie. It is more annoying. I'm going to get in trouble on YouTube for saying the word titties, but I can't even scroll through and look at anime titties on my Twitter without Canada coming up. I'm kidding, of course, but you understand my meaning. I can't look at recipes. I can't look at funny cat videos. It's all politics between the US and Canada all the time. And it is my fault, because one of my top comments is, shut the fuck up, please. Like, let me get back to my food. Anyway, yeah, this whole thing's a mess. It needs to stop. I really wish, and this is, like, absolutely a violation of federal law in the United States, and 100% would get me in trouble, banned off of Steam, off stream, the whole 9 yards. I really wish that the civilian populations of the world could elect civilian representatives, everyday Joe, from individual states and regions to go to a conference and just, like, on a televised stage, bitch about their world leaders. Just 100% free speech, call the stupid where the stupid is, and have it televised worldwide. Just call it the global bitching forum or something, you know? It'd be great. We could broadcast it on YouTube, X, Facebook, everyone could watch it. And, you know, and then people would finally start to understand. I feel like they'd start to understand, like, differences in each nation. Not at the political, who gives a fuck level, but the day-to-day level. Like, I'm not a Canadian. I don't know what it's like to take a hockey puck to the shins, and I hope I never do. It looks painful. I don't play hockey either, so that I guess that kind of puts me in a little bit of a protected group. But no, I really do I like the idea of having a random selected person who gets a free, all expenses paid trip from each and every individual region on the planet, the hundreds of thousands of regions that we have, with translators and everything. And like each person gets like 5 things they get to bitch about in consecutive order, and then they get to pass the baton on to someone else, and the next person gets to bitch. And it's all televised and translated. Like, I think that'd be great to have that at least once a year. The problem is it never happened because places like Russia, China, and North Korea, they would never let their people say anything. It would be, you say a wrong thing, your family's dead before you get back, basically, or you won't make it back, or you'll never make it there to begin with. So, yeah, I mean that's really the only part of it that sucks, but like it's a good idea. I kind of feel like civilians need to be able to air their grievances on a global scale so that way they can just speak their minds and have everyday people hear what everyday people in other countries are saying. Because I feel like all we hear, probably the best example of this, right, is the whole Canada-US thing right now. All we hear is a bunch of saber rattling between political leaders. Like, where's my spot to sit here and complain about the fact that I feel like we're overtaxed? I feel like it's a shame that oh, I'd love to. I would love to. There's so many things that need to be done in North America that can be done if the US and Canada can just get their act together. Absolutely. Um, you know, I hope you guys can pull it off. I really do. Just you know, just try to keep it on the straight and narrow, and remember where your roots are at, and remember where you came from, and do your best for your people, and that's all I can say. Here in the U.S., like, I'm a fat guy on a stream bitching about life. My influence is based off of how many people I can reach. I'll put it that way. Outside of that, I'm going to kind of rat myself out on stream here. This YouTube channel and my kids are probably the most consequential things I've ever done in my life. Outside of that, I've worked at Walmart. I went to college for automotive repair. I don't exactly have a background in politics. I got drugged into politics because of an ex-girlfriend. Hey, yeah, no, good chatting with you. Thanks. I appreciate the sub. Hey, do me a favor, though. If you don't mind sharing the channel around. I might do more of these, actually. But definitely wonderful chatting with you. I'm going to get off, too, so anyone else watching this, hit the like and subscribe button if you like the content. And I leave a comment, and I will see you in the next one.